Top 5 foods na nakakadiabetes kahit hindi matamis. Yan yung pag-uusapan natin today and welcome to our Facebook page. Again, after 20 days, you were able to regain access sa ating Facebook page at maraming salamat to all of you who have been very supportive sa ating mga pages and also to our groups. So, yun yung top 5 na food na pag-uusapan natin, especially for Filipinos. I miss you everyone. Kaya I'm so happy na right now, after a long while, ay nandito tayo muli. So, ano yung 5 pagkain na yon na pinaka-common sa mga Pinoy and nakaka-cause and nakaka-worsen ng mga diabetes. And actually, hindi lang diabetes, other illnesses as well. So, merong mga iba na hindi nagkakaroon ng diabetes but may have other manifestations of inflammation. It can be high blood pressure, yung iba tumataas yung kanilang bad cholesterol, yung kanilang triglycerides, yung kanilang liver ay nagiging fatty liver, at marami pang iba. Sa mga babae, minsan nagkakaroon ng PCOS or PCOS, yung polycystic ovarian syndrome, and also meron ding mga breast mass. Sa mga lalaki, pwedeng magkaroon ng mga prostate cancer or tumors. Those are all endpoints ng inflammation. Inflammation o pamamaga na nasa loob ng katawan, hindi lang yung pamamaga na nakikita natin like on our joints, sa mga arthritis or whatever, are actually not the major or pinakakailangan nating bantayan. Yung kailangan nating bantayan is the inflammation na nasa loob na hindi pa nagmamanifest as pain or mga pagkaroon ng pamumula or pag-iinit, the usual na pamamaga na nakikita natin. The microscopic na pamamaga or inflammation are the ones that's happening inside our blood vessels, our nerves, even sa mga muscles natin, sa mga organs natin, and yun yung kailangan natin na mawala. So, to start with the top 5 foods na nakaka-lead into diabetes. But lastly, before tayo magsimula sa top 5 na yan, of course, yung mga matatamis, yung mga desserts, ice cream, mga chocolates, mga fraps, milk tea, yung mga biscuit, all of those are actually really direct cause of elevated blood sugar and inflammation. Yung mga candies, yung parati natin binibigay ng mga lollipop sa mga bata. So those things are already not part of this list. Kasi alam na natin yon. That's already common sense. Alam ko kasi merong mga medyo ma-pilosopo minsan and I understand kasi ganun din ako as a person. Medyo pilosopo din ako as a person. Pero nga, this episode is not for that. Okay? Alam na natin that sugar, sweet foods are really not essential sa ating pamumuhay, especially sa more than 400,000 members of Life Without Rice and more than 200,000 members of Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community. So, number 1, food na hindi matamis pero nakaka-worsen ng diabetes or nakaka-lead into diabetes. For those na wala pang diabetes would be, ano yan? Can you guess? It's actually the bread, tinapay, pandesal, pan-Americano, French bread, at kung ano-ano pang bread. So, lahat ng tinapay na yan, those are made up of starch in the form of flour. So, yung flour na yan, kapag ninunguya mo, if you've been practicing mindful eating, kapag ngumuya ka ng ngumuya, yung mga taong hindi katulad ko noon, na kapag kagat, lunok agad, yung mga taong very patient, kapag ngumuya sila, eventually, nakikita nyo ba, nararamdaman nyo ba na after a while na pangunguya, you actually feel na yung tinapay ay nagiging matamis na. You know why? Because from starch, okay? Starch is a complex form of carbohydrates. Yun yung parati nating ine-explain na kung yung glucose o yung sugar na alam nating matamis is in the form of coins. Okay? Nasa barya-barya. So, maliliit sila. So, eventually, you can really feel isang pag-shake mo lang, alam mong barya yan, alam mong pera yan. But sometimes, it can be in complex form. Papel. Kapag ang papel na pera, hindi mo pa nabuksan, hindi mo pa nakita, nasa loob ng envelope pa, pwede siyang papel lang. But pwede siyang pera na higit pa sa coins na yon. At yun yung starch. So, yung bread, yung tinapay, yung pan-Americano, yung pandesal, ano pa ba? Maraming bread na klase, especially na sa Pilipinas and also in Cebu. I used to stay in Cebu for more than 10 years at kada kanto merong mga nagkakatabing mga bake shop and pastry shops. So, sobrang hilig talaga natin sa tinapay. And that is also the reason why sobrang common din yung diabetes among people na kahit hindi sila mahilig sa matamis, pero hindi sila makahindi sa tinapay. So yes, I know maraming na-scam din sa wheat bread. Isa na ako dyan. In fact, when I was younger, para sa akin yung wheat bread is hindi talaga masarap. Parang feeling ko yung kinakain ko is pagkain na para sa baboy or para sa iba kasi it's very, very grainy. But because of the belief na yung wheat bread is healthier, dumating sa panahon that I love wheat bread more than white bread. Na yung na-convince ko na yung sarili ko that this is healthier and eventually I learned to love it. Only to realize, eto, kung bibigyan ng point system, yung sugar na increase when it comes to the sugar spike of each bread, kung ang white bread ay makakapagpataas ng iyong blood sugar by 72 points. Okay? Yung wheat bread ay makakapagpataas ng iyong blood sugar ng mas mababa. And that is by 68 to 69 points. So actually, hindi sila ganun kalayo. This is because yung wheat bread, meron siyang added in exchange for those starch, meron siyang fiber. So yung fiber, kung sa pera ulit, okay? Kung sa pera ulit, it is a form of money na meron siyang value, but hindi siya easily interchange sa atin. So say for example, it is like a parang banknote na hindi mo basta-basta ma-exchange into money. So meron ka nga niyan, pero hindi mo naman magagamit, di ba? So that is why fiber is not gonna increase your blood sugar. Pero it doesn't mean na mataas ito sa fiber ay mababa ito sa net carbohydrates or the amount of carbohydrates na nako-convert into sugar. Wheat bread, unfortunately, is higher in fiber, but it doesn't mean it is lower in starch. It is almost somewhat the same. Kung lalagyan natin yan ng statistical difference, it is not statistically significant yung difference nila. So, in a sense, parang pareho pa rin yung wheat bread and white bread when it comes to blood sugar impact. When it comes to timing, maybe madedelay ng konti. Yung pagtaas ng blood sugar mo kapag kumain ka ng regular pandesal as compared to wheat bread pandesal. But eventually, it will get there. So pataas na pataas, umaakyat at umaakyat pa rin. And the same sugar, blood sugar spike will be the same. So that's number 1 on our list of foods na hindi matamis but can aggravate your diabetes. No wonder, kahit pa iniwasan nyo na yung white bread, kahit pa hindi na kayo kumakain ng matatamis, but you were replacing your food with wheat bread and other breads, still the same. Gestational diabetes is the diabetes that happens when the woman is pregnant. Okay? And it's not also uncommon. So, quite common din siya sa Filipinos. And if you can look at what you've been eating, especially sa mga mommies na merong gestational diabetes, you will realize after watching this video kung bakit meron kayong gestational diabetes kahit umiiwas na kayo sa Coke, kahit umiiwas na kayo sa ice cream, kahit hindi na kayo nagde-desserts, and still the same. So, the low carb bread is an exemption because the low carb bread is almost very, very low in sugar, especially if it's made talaga na alam mong totoong low carb. Kasi ngayon, you have to be careful kasi marami ng mga sellers ngayon labeling their food as low carb bread, as almond bread, as coconut bread, but it is not true low carb. Yung ginawa nila, kasi yung totoong low carb bread is made up of mostly yung pinaka-common although maraming ibang ingredients, either a blend of coconut flour or almond flour. Yung ginawa ng iba na para ma-confuse yung karamihan na wala pang alam when it comes to low carb way of eating, gumawa sila ng regular bread na still the same, made up of regular flour, wheat flour, Pero nilagyan na nila ng almonds at tinawag na nila itong almond bread. Just like raisin bread, which is a regular bread, pero nilagyan lang ng kakaunting raisins and they already call it as raisin bread. So yun yung ginawa nila sa almond bread. So be very careful. That's why as much as possible, kung pwede, kayo mismo gumawa ng inyong low carb bread. It's very, very easy. In a matter of 5 minutes, meron ka ng parang bread-like na sensation and happiness and experience, but it will have a little effort. Little effort, sa simula lang naman yan. There's learning curve in everything. Join Life Without Rice for free recipes and very easy and very affordable kind of low carb bread. So yun na yun. Move on na tayo. That's number 1 in our list of top 5 foods na nakaka-diabetes. Number 2, list ako para hindi ako makalimot. So number 2 is contrary sa common knowledge na mas mahaba, mas nakakapahaba ng buhay. Actually, it is not. These are the pancit, spaghetti, bihon, sotanghon, at kung ano-ano pang mga forms of pasta. Noodles, ramen, wonton, all of those pasta will actually not gonna make you live longer, but might actually even lead into worse kind of medical situation, especially if you are overeating it. Okay? So, magsasabi, yung Japan, yung China, yung mahaba naman yung buhay. Remember, it's not all of Japan. Okay? It's in Okinawa only, and it's not just on the food factor. Maraming factor when it comes to blue zones. It's not just nutrition. It's also community. It's also the weather. It's also the physical activity ng mga tao at yung kanilang mindset. Yung pagkain is just few factors. So, if you think you can live like the blue zones na merong mga certain carbs, but ito yung pinaka-importante, eating mostly whole real foods, then of course you can eat. So, when it comes to pancit, kasi before ako, lover of pancit. My mom is half Chinese, and kahit hindi kami nag-practice ng Chinese culture, but I think yung pinaka-genes ko na related to Chinese dahil mahilig talaga ako sa Chinese food. I love Chinese food so much. It's just so sad na marami sa mga Chinese foods are full of carbohydrates. And if you are overeating it, then most likely, pwede itong makakontribute sa inyong pagtaas ng blood sugar. This is a special shout out sa mga meron ng diabetes na umiinom na ng mga gamot at nagtitest na ng kanilang blood sugar. If you don't believe me, you can just check your blood sugar. You can do your own home testing right after kumain kayo ng mga pagkain nasa top 5 na ito. So again, number 1 would be the breads. All kinds of bread except yung low carb bread ha. I mean the traditional bread, the traditional na nabibili natin sa mga tindahan, sa mga bake shop, sa mga bakery na nasa labas lang ng ating bahay. And number 2 would be the pancit, bihon, noodles, pancit canton, spaghetti, fettuccine, pasta, at kung ano-ano pa. All those pasta, all those forms are still starch na nakakapagpataas ng ating blood sugar. And for those na gluten sensitive, especially sa mga Pinoy na hindi sanay na kumain nito, just like Sir Alan, isa sa mga admins natin in our groups, Life Without Rice and Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community, actually na-activate yung kanyang gluten allergy when he was working abroad at walang rice doon at kumain siya ng pasta. And my aunt also, who is already like my second mom, ay meron din gluten allergy. So these are embedded in these na mga pagkain. Don't worry, Melanie. Sasabihin ko lang mamaya kung ano yung pwedeng kainin. Don't worry, makakakain pa rin tayo. Nakikita niyo naman, if you are following our pages, maraming pagkain dyan. Don't focus on the bawal. Focus on yung mga pwedeng kainin. While I'm gonna talk more about the 3 other foods sa mga matagal na nagpa-practice ng low carb, ng Life Without Rice, kindly help yung mga bago sa ating group, sa ating page, na mga nako-confuse kung ano na lang kakainin. Try to show them kung ano yung inyong kinakain, ano yung inyong Life Without Rice plates, LWR na mga menu ninyo. Post it in the comment section, put your photos, para ma-inspire na iba na hindi pa katapusan ng mundo kung walang pansit, kung walang tinapay. Moving on to the third point of foods, top 5 foods na nakakadiabetes kahit na hindi masyadong matamis. This number 3 is actually not matamis. Okay? Kasi medyo matamis siya. But I included this to correct our notion about this food groups because marami sa atin na iniisip ito, it's the healthiest kind of food at kapag kumain tayo nito, parang mawawala na lahat ng sakit natin. Only to find out after eating so much for so many years, spending regular budget for this kind of food group, ay ganun pa din. You also still need the budget to buy your medications, to try to lower your blood sugar. Every month, magpapalaboratory ka pa rin only to see that your blood sugar is still high. Ganun pa rin, pabalik-balik lang. At ano ito? These are actually fruits. So, yung mga prutas. Prutas, especially here in the Philippines, mangga, saging, ano pa ba yung mga paborito ng mga ng mga Pinoy na papaya, and then what else? So many fruits that are actually sa ating mga Pinoy, ang ating basihan na ang isang prutas ay masarap is kapag ito ay matamis, 'di ba? So sad. Kapag hindi matamis yung prutas, sinasabi natin, ay, hindi magandang klase yan, hindi magandang uri yan. Only to see later na yung ating blood sugar is also not normal. And yung isa, I think for those of you who have been with us for years now, alam ninyo what happened to my papa who passed away 5 years ago. Before I learned all of this, yun yung pinaka nakakalungkot is actually hindi na siya kumakain ng mga top 5 foods except for fruits, especially yung guyabano. Because marami pa siyang naririnig na ito daw yung cure for cancer, cure for whatever. But when he checked his overall blood chemistry, meron pa rin itong inflammation. Yung isa kasing tricky when it comes to fruits, especially sa mga diabetic na nagmo-monitor ng kanilang blood sugar, hindi tataas yung inyong blood sugar sa pagkain ng prutas. And you might feel na it is safe kasi nga hindi tumataas yung inyong blood sugar, di ba? Pero kapag ipa-check ninyo yung inyong liver enzymes, you will see that there's fat in liver, pwedeng tumaas yung inyong SGPT, SGOT. Bakit? Alam nyo ba kung bakit? Dahil the sugar in fruits is composed of 2 things. Yung inyong glucose test, CBG, capillary blood glucose, yung strip na tinutusok natin sa ating kamay, that will only detect glucose in your bloodstream. But it will not detect the other sugar that is very abundant sa fruits. Ano yung klase ng sugar na yon? That is fructose. So fructose is a fruit sugar. Yes, it is a natural form of sugar, but it is not the kind of nutrition na kailangan natin ng maramihan sa ating pagkain. So, guava, meron lang ako nakikita randomly, can actually become low carb. But hindi yung mga mapupulang guava na matatamis. Just the green guava, yung enough lang na makakain mo na, yung hindi na mapait, that can be a part of low carb. But when it comes to fruit, hindi natin sinasabi na bawal na talaga mag-fruits. But we have to remove the mindset na ang fruits ay yung pinaka-healthy na pagkain na pwede nating kainin on an unlimited basis, buffet style. No, fruits should be taken in caution and with enough portioning only. Okay? Portions lang, hindi unlimited. Meron pa kaming pasyente nagsasabi, sayang kasi meron kaming tanim na saging on our backyard and we just asked, sabi ni admin siya, ano yung sayang para sa inyo? Yung mawawala, yung fruits na pwede mong ibigay actually sa iba or you can give to animals which is para talaga sa kanila yon. Or ano yung masayang? Yung health mo na for so many decades ay hindi mo pa rin makorek-korek. Diba? So, it's just a matter of mindset. Pineapple is still a lot of sugar. You can check the content and kapag chine-check nyo yung sugar content ng mga fruits, you can just search it in Google, anywhere. Pwede nyo lang i-check yan. Hindi nyo ilalagay yung sugar content. But what you will look into is the net carbs. Marami na yan. For example, ita-type nyo in Google, pineapple, nutritional facts, and net carbohydrates. Ipapakita sa inyo dyan. And remember, per 4 grams of carbohydrates is equivalent to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So I think yung isang 100 grams of pineapple, yung 100 grams, imagine niyo yung pineapple, isang buong ganyan, kasama na yan yung kanyang balata, is already like mga half kilo. So you just divide it into 5. So isang malaking thick, isang makapal siguro na circle na pineapple is already 100 grams, and yung net carbs niyan ay approximately nasa 10. So that's already 2.5 teaspoon of white sugar equivalent. Okay? So, nasa sa inyo na. I'm not telling you na hindi na kayo kakain ng fruits, hindi na kayo kakain ng pineapple kung gusto ninyo. I just want to share with you kung gaano karami yung sugar na nasa pagkain na yan, and kung ano yung pwedeng gawin yan sa ating katawan. Our father died of diabetes complications. Walang namamatay sa diabetes alone, but the complications of diabetes. Hindi siya alcoholic drinker, pero namatay siya with liver cancer. And one of the major things na ginawa niya during the last 5 years ng kanyang buhay habang nagtuturok na siya ng diabetes is actually avoiding all those foods na sinasabing bawal for diabetics except fruits. Kasi walang nagsasabing bawal ang prutas para sa isang taong may diabetes. He can eat yung isang 10 pieces na banana in one meal. Kakainin niya yon. Yung isang whole guyabano, he can eat like 1 or 2 of that in a day. So every day, ganun yon. And those are the reasons why eventually lumala talaga, yung pinaka nag-suffer sa kanyang katawan is the liver, because liver is going to take all of those inflammation. Yung nangyayari kasi, extra fructose, yung extra sugar na hindi naman glucose, hindi siya immediately na nagagamit as energy because we are also eating so much and we are not moving so much, is naiimbak lang siya sa ating liver. And since hindi siya pwedeng ma-store as fructose, hindi siya pwedeng ma-store as coins, di ba? Kasi mabigat siya. Kino-convert siya into triglycerides. And that triglycerides, hindi lang yan yung byproduct ng fructose. Alam niyo ba kung anong isang byproduct ng fructose? This is also something that surprised me. Even as a doctor, even if I felt like pinag-aralan ko na lahat in med school, and even if isa sa pinakamataas na score ko in physician licensure exam is biochemistry, but it surprised me to learn only when I learned about low carb na isang byproduct pala ng fructose, which is the sugar from fruits, is uric acid. So, do not wonder if ever sobrang hilig kayo sa prutas at tumataas yung inyong uric acid, because there is a biochemical pathway na kung saan na kapag na-process na yung fructose na sobra-sobra sa ating katawan na pinagkakakain natin, kasi nga meron tayong tanim na saging sa ating bakuran, then do not wonder kung bakit kahit pa uminom kayo ng gamot para pababain yung ating uric acid ay mataas pa din, 'di ba? But meron namang low carb fruits that are available if you wish, if you want those low carb fruits. Avocado, certain berries like strawberries, yung blueberry, be careful kasi pwede siyang mas marami yung kanyang sugar content. So kapag kumakain kayo nito, even if these are low carb, still, wag sobrang dami. Just enough to put some happiness in your plate kung gusto mo. Pero hindi yung unlimited na parang 1 kilo uubusin mo agad. Okay? So we have the JGC Rojo food list. Ilalagay yan ng ating admins for you to check kung saan nyo pwedeng ma-download yung food list na yan for your convenience. Ilalagay nyo sa inyong pantry, sa inyong ref, sa inyong hapagkainan to remind you. So, yun yung top 3. Number 1, meron tayong top 5 would be the bread. Top 4 would be the pancit and the pasta and the noodles and all of that. Number 3 would be the fruits, okay? So, yung ating pang-apat, second sa ating top food na nakakadiabetes kahit hindi matamis would actually be the root crops. Kamote, patatas, ube, at kung ano-ano pa. Marami na that merong diabetes are actually being advised to eat root crops, kamote, instead of other carbs. And yes, nakikita natin, meron namang improvement, di ba? I'm sure there is improvement, but not to a point na merong reversal. Ano yung reversal? Diabetes, we thought before, is a lifestyle disease. It is because noon, kung ano yung lifestyle na ating nakasanayan, we thought na yun na talaga, parang curse na siya, na wala na tayong magagawa. But now we are seeing changes. If you can see, marami na dyan na I think meron akong nabasa kanina na na-reverse na niya yung kanyang diabetes. And that is kapag napagpatuloy ninyo ang lifestyle without all of these foods at makikita ninyo na your blood chemistry is getting better, yung inyong FBS, fasting blood sugar, is improving. More importantly, yung HbA1c ninyo, yung average of 3 months blood sugar control is normal, below 5.7, na wala nang iniinom na gamot. Of course, you do this under guidance of your doctor, of your physician, and you can see na that is already the definition of diabetes reversal, at marami na po kaming pasyente na ganyan. One of our stars sa ating community would be Sir Jazzy Torres, a Filipino na based abroad, based in the US, na for 20 years siya ay diabetic, and for 10 years ay naka-inject na ng insulin. But after 3 months of religiously sticking to our safe list sa ating JGC Rojo food list, then it is now gone. Under the guidance, of course, ng kanyang doktor. And of course, we also have an ongoing masterclass, an online class na kung saan we will teach you theoretically para maintindihan ninyo what's going on your body, at ano yung kailangan ninyong bantayan, at ano yung kailangan ninyong i-prepare should you wish to do it the safest and most effective way para ma-normalize yung inyong blood sugar the natural way. So, congratulations! So, sabi ni Jill, from 7.2 when she was first diagnosed, ay 5.6 na lang yung HbA1c. And hindi yan something na isolated in our community. It's one of those things that we see and read and hear every day, and it's coming from real people. Yan po yung katotohanan. And yes, yun. Root crops is better than dessert, is better than bread, is better than pasta, but it's also not better than not having at all. Ibig sabihin, okay yung root crops if ever yung ipapalit mo sa inyong, for example, sa inyong bread, sa inyong mga dessert, sa inyong ice cream, mas mabuti naman yung root crop. Pero kung gusto mo talagang ma-normalize muna, then you can remove that. And although hindi naman yan forever, once you are already fully healed and say for example, wala na talagang evidence of inflammation, you can actually incorporate those again. Between sweet potato and potato na regular, sweet potato, yung mga tinatanim talaga natin sa ating mga bakuran or nabibili natin in our local markets, those are actually healthier. The thing is, when you eat that, also consider amount. Also consider option. Just one kamote na ganyan is already enough. Yung sister ko, when she was pregnant, that's the only carb na pinagkakakain niya. So just one potato, approximately nasa 40 to 50 grams net carbs lang, and enough na for her to have bowel movement, and also still not going over our 50 gram of carbohydrate limit in a day. So hindi tayo zero carb, hindi yon pwersahan. Although kung gusto mo, pwede rin, walang pipigil sa'yo. But it's just that we are emphasizing on the limit of carbohydrate. At sa mga macho natin dyan na mga natatakot na baka mawala yung kanilang muscles, actually no, eating proteins with fats can still preserve your muscles. So ibang topic yan for another time. For now, we will continue with our discussion. So again, to recap, we have the breads, we have the mga pansit, we have the fruits, and also the root crops. Singkamas is a happiness because singkamas is a root crop, pero ito ay singkamas na mababa sa carbohydrates. You can enjoy 100 to 200 grams of singkamas in a day na hindi tataas yung inyong blood sugar. So it's a good kind of root crop kasi matubig siya, ma-fiber at mababa sa kanyang mga net carbs. But to simplify it, para wag masyadong complicated, we can just try to think first na if you want to heal, try to avoid muna para magkaroon tayo ng better chances of healing. And for our number one, top one reason kung bakit sobrang dami ng diabetic dito sa Pilipinas and also increasing in other Asian countries, ano yon? Kanin. Kahit saan, lilingon ka, Andy Rice. Free Andy Rice. Walang bayad yung Andy Rice. I think there was a senator before na nag-propose na dapat kunin yung Andy Rice na promotion sa mga restaurants, and I think binash siya ng bonggang-bongga. And I think before, nung narinig ko yon, I was still not in low carb at medyo apathetic ako when it comes to politics eh. So, naisip ko lang, hindi ko alam, hindi lang ako magpo-comment kasi nga, I don't concern myself with the things na hindi ko pa napag-aralan before. And now I realize, malaki pala yung sana yung tulong na yun. Baka hindi natin alam kung sino sa ating mga kakilala ang na-activate yung diabetes dahil sa Only Rice na yan. Meron pang nag-comment ata in one of our TikTok videos, 9 cups of rice in a day for 35 years now and still good and still healthy daw. But until when? Until when are you gonna be healthy? Our genes, as we age, nag-iiba yung response natin to food. Before, na nakakain tayo ng ilang rice in a day, okay lang. But it will be eventually, darating yung point na hindi nakakayanin ng ating katawan. So if we want to preserve whatever life is left sa ating buhay and sa ating body, whatever health that we can preserve and can possibly improve, possibly reverse, then we can do that. And one thing when it comes to rice, hindi lang po rice, it's actually grains. So hindi lang siya kanin, but it's also the wheat, it's also the corn, and it's not just the colors ng white rice. Even brown rice, even red rice, even black rice, yes, they have more vitamins, more fiber, more nutrients, but it doesn't mean they have less net carbohydrates. When it comes to lowering the inflammation in the body at yung pagpapababa ng ating blood sugar, mas importante na mag-focus muna sa pagpapababa ng sugar load or sugar burden sa ating katawan. Bakit natin gustong pababain yung ating sugar burden sa katawan? We actually want to put rest. Gusto nating papahingahin yung ating pancreas. Ano naman ang kinalaman ng pancreas sa ating sugar? Sugar lang yung ating pinag-uusapan at yung diabetes. Because our pancreas is a very precious organ na hindi famous. Hindi siya kasing popular ng heart, hindi siya kasing popular ng ating brain, ng ating liver, but our pancreas is actually very, very important na ang mga taong inooperahan na kinukuha yung pancreas ay merong sobrang taas na mortality rate. We can almost not live without pancreas. At yung pancreas natin, siya kasi yung gumagawa ng ating insulin hormones sa katawan and many other hormones like glucagon, yung pang-counter ng insulin at marami pang iba. At kapag parati nating sinisqueeze ng mabuti si pancreas, we are actually forcing our pancreas to overwork. So para siyang nag-overheat kung sa sasakyan pa. And we want to have a break. Yung maganda dito, yung good news dito, malaki ang chance ng ating pancreas to heal itself. Kayang-kaya niyang gamutin yung kanyang sarili, but kailangan muna magpahinga. And ano yung pinakamabisang pahinga? Fasting, wag kumain. But of course, hindi yan kaya ng karamihan. Mag-iisip pa lang na wag kumain, ako, papatayin mo ba kami? Hindi yan makatotohanan. Hindi naman kami monk, hindi naman kami pare, hindi naman kami nasa konbento na magfa-fasting, mag-aayuno, hindi naman Holy Week, hindi naman kami Muslim. Bakit mo kami ipagpa-fasting? So, hindi kayo pipiliting mag-fasting. But what's the beauty when it comes to low-carb nutrition? Kapag inalis mo actually yung top 5 foods na ito along with other sugars, other carbohydrates, fasting, yung pag-aayuno, will come naturally. Hindi mo kailangan persahin yung sarili mo. Hindi mo kailangan parang gutumin yung sarili mo because you will not feel that hunger. Like for me, yung last kain ko kahapon was around 4 o'clock at ngayon it's already 12:38. So nasa 20 hours of fasting na ako at gano'n pa rin, madaldal pa rin at hindi pa rin ganon ka sumo-surrender. I will eat in a while because I have lunch with friends and hopefully we will also still as usual enjoy low carb food. So yun yung beauty ng low carb way of eating. Yung pagkain mo, hindi ka gumagugutom and you can see yourself just eating when you are really nutritionally hungry. Quinoa, meron akong binawang post before na their net carbohydrate is actually still very high. It's high in fiber, but it's still high in net carbohydrates. If you want to complicate your life, go with quinoa, i-prepare mo yan, at kung meron naman nagpe-prepare sa'yo and you can afford quinoa, that's good. It's good. I'm so happy for you. But just know na hindi talaga yan makakatulong sa pagpapababa ng blood sugar. Meron pa kasing isa yung couscous and quinoa, meron akong kilala na just because it's lower in net carbs as compared to rice, pero yung ginagawa nila, sumadami naman yung kanilang kinakain. So maybe if you want to eat quinoa pero maliit lang, kaya mong kontrolin yung sarili mo, then maybe you can have that in your meal, in your daily meal. But the thing is, when it comes to discipline or when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to mindset sa mga pagkain na ito, hindi ito dapat na lagyan lang natin ng replacement or we can eat a little of this like self-control, because when it comes to psychological na impact sa ating katawan, yung willpower, yung self-control, hindi yan forever. Meron darating na araw na mauubos yung self-control mo, na mauubos yung willpower mo. However, if you have the right mindset, if you see those food for what they really is, kung alam mo talaga kung ano yung impact nila sa inyong katawan, and once you decide na hindi na talaga sila bagay at part ng inyong pamumuhay, then it's just an easy no. You will no longer need self-control. You will no longer need to activate yung willpower. You know why? Because the answer will always be no. But if every time tatanungin mo yung sarili mo, kakain ba ako nito o hindi? Kakain ba ako nito o hindi? Then that will be your downfall, because darating yung panahon na mapapagod ka at bigla ka na lang mag-give in at ikaw mismo ay magkakaroon ng biglaang unlimited rice and high carb feast. So yes, fasting is really like medicine for healing. Sabi ni Nobaisa, who is a Muslim, and I believe so, it's really cleansing. Marami na ngang research how those na on Ramadan period na gumagawa ng 14 hours of dry fasting every day, their body fat lowered, but their muscle is improved, and yung markers of inflammation nila ay bumaba din. So, shirataki rice noodles, yes, you can have that if you want, because hindi naman talaga yung totoong rice and noodles, but those are just alternative. I just want you to make sure na every time you eat them for what they really is. Hindi mo sila i-experience na, para siyang rice, para siyang noodles. No, because if you keep on feeding yourself those thoughts, then you will keep on craving them. But kung alam nyo na shirataki pasta talaga siya, isa siyang shirataki na made up of parang gelatin lang siya eh. It's a seaweed-based na cognac flour, which is low carb na available. It can be pricey. That's why for us, meron kami yan usually 1, 2, or 3 packs lang. Pero we eat them very seldom. Like in 2 months siguro, once every 2 months, nakakakain kami yan. And we no longer crave. You know why? What we usually eat? We eat a lot of foods. We eat a lot of foods just without carbohydrates. So, yung ulam lang. Like kahapon, I'll try to see kung meron akong na-picturean dito. I usually take picture of my food to share with you, and also para naging habit na din. Like this one, merong bangus. So, merong bangus sa clinic, nagdala si Doc C, and free naman, di ba? So, hindi mo kailangan magtipid. Of course, you have to be conscious, but marami. So, kumain ako ng bangus without rice. And mindset lang yan. If you are saving money, then iisipin mo baka mas mahal kasi puro ulam lang, di ba? But what is amazing actually, kapag kinain mo yung ulam lang, actually hindi ka makakarami ng pagkain. You will feel full or satisfied way way shorter in a shorter period of time as compared to merong kanin kasi mauumay ka. And yung idea na nauumay ka is actually something na sabi natin kapag nauumay, kain ka ulit kasi ayaw mong nauumay. But actually, kapag nauumay ka, it's already a signal coming from your brain, coming from your body that you already had enough. Actually, enough na yon. We just need to be more mindful and we just need to maybe if hindi tayo sanay na hindi punong-puno yung tiyan natin, we can fill it up with water or tea or black coffee if you want. Yan, you can do that. And adlay rice is still the same, high carb. Okay? So, it's grains. Under kasi siya ng grains. So, yan yung usually na kinakain ko. And ano pa ba? Meron pa ba ako? I usually take pictures of my food and I will just show you kung ano yung pagkain namin. And, iba pala to. Yan. So, meron akong last time, meron akong chicharon, may pakaing pansit sa office. So, hindi ako kumain ng pansit. But usually, since alam nila na naka-low carb ako, they allow me na yung toppings lang. Yung shrimp, yung pork, at yung vegetables na nasa toppings, yun yung kinakain ko. And I can still experience, I can still enjoy the pleasure of the pancit flavor, of the sotanghon, birthday pancit kasi to eh. So, nandun pa rin, but without the carbs. At kung iisipin nyo, mas masarap naman yung ulam kesa sa carbohydrates, sa rice, sa pasta. Yung toppings, yung sahog, sila actually yung nagbibigay ng flavor. At kung hindi naman kayo nagtitipid, especially kung meron kayong trabaho and you can afford, then all the more. You don't have any reason. Meron akong mga kilala na, alam mo, mga sobrang yaman talaga. Alam mo, they can afford anything. But because nasanay sila since we were young, kasi nga Pinoy tayo, na kumakain ng maramihan yung kanin, ganun pa rin sila kumain ngayon. Sobrang dami pa rin ng sobrang dami ng kanin at kakaunti lang yung ulam. And sa mga payatot dyan, sabi ni Dan na payatot na because of low carb, for example, dahil baka nung nag-low carb kayo, kinuha nyo yung rice, kinuha nyo yung ating mga pasta, kinuha nyo yung bread, pero yung inyong ulam ay ganun pa din. Of course, hindi ganyan. So you have to eat the right way, the right food, the right amount, but it should be from the right sources. So easy fix sa akin personally, if I eat like savory food like adobo, low carb adobo, okay, humba in Cebu, usually kapag kumakain ako ng humba, meron yan 2 egg. So, 2 egg, 3 egg, how many eggs you want, yun yung pinaka-replacement ko. For others, they thrive on vegetables. Lettuce or pepino, yun yung pinaka parang nire-replace nila. Kasi tandaan nyo, bakit tayo kumakain ng kanin? It's either for bulk, kasi gusto nating busog, energy, and also para neutralize yung mga very flavorful foods sa ating mga ulam. Because yung ulam nga ng mga Pinoy, di ba? Yung ulam natin is a mixture of salty, savory, spicy, a little sweet, yung mga gano'n. At kailangan nating pang-neutralize. So, hindi kailangan kanin yung pang-neutralize. The egg white of egg is very bland. Walang lasa yon. Kaya perfect siya pang-neutralize. Others, vegetables. So, cabbage, lettuce, pechay, or kahit ano. Meron nagtanong about carrots. So, carrots, nasa caution list natin yan. It's a root crop. It can be starchy. So, kapag nagka-carrots kayo, just be mindful together with beans. So, always go back to our hashtag JGC Rojo food list para makita ninyo how you can possibly improve yung inyong pagkain. So, ang mga nangangayayat dyan, na mga tito, tita, mga friends natin dyan, ay yon, baka kailangan nyo nang kumain ng more. Eat more. You just have to eat right. You don't need to eat less. Just eat right depending on your goals. So, if more on veggies kayo, meron dyan, more on veggies daw sila ng anak niya who is 10 years old, okay lang, walang problema. But make sure you are reaching your protein allowance, protein needs in a day, especially sa mga bata. Mas kailangan ng mga bata yung proteins para tumubo. If you've been wondering kung bakit hindi medyo matangkad, hindi kayo pinagpala sa height, wag niyong sisihin yung inyong parents at wag lang yung genes, pero tingnan niyo kung ano yung ratio ng proteins sa inyong pagkain while growing up. So, no point in blaming. Hindi na tayo kailangan magsisihan, but we can improve more on the next generation. So, okra is okay in low carb. Also, talong and ampalaya. But I really cannot eat all of these three, no? Hindi ko talaga ako sila kaya. Sinusubukan ko, pero hindi ko sila talaga kaya. Tawag namin sa tatlong ito are hardcore vegetables. So, noon kasama dyan yung kalabasa. Pero, nung naka-low carb na ako at hindi na ako sanay kumain ng matamis, na-realize ko na yung kalabasa ay sobrang tamis pala. And yun nga, sabi ni Doc Mike, one of our mentors, siya pa nag-remind sa akin because pumpkin, squash, kalabasa is actually not vegetable. Prutas yung kalabasa. That's why nasa caution list din siya. And now, I like kalabasa but I take them very, very occasionally. Hindi ko na nga maalala yung kalabasa kinain ko. Maybe last year pa. Oo, last year pa. Nung bago ako mag-birthday, September, habang nakabakasyon ako in Kawayan, in anong resort yon? I think nakita niyo yon sa mga nakakita habang nagsa-study ako doon. Yun yung last na kalabasa na latik. Yun yung tawag namin. Latik ng kalabasa. It's kalabasa with coconut milk. So, yun. It's in caution list because kalabasa is a fruit. So, fruits are mostly in our caution list. So, sabi ni Yami, sabi nga ni Hippocrates, the father of ancient medicine, let food be your medicine. And also, alam nyo ba na si Hippocrates and many other philosophers and many other most famous people in the world, Jesus Christ, Gandhi, Buddha, and many more, nagpa-fasting sila. Fasting is really healing. Yan yung opportunity for our body to heal itself. So, maraming salamat everyone. I need to go and I'm so happy we're back to our channel. Although, baka hindi natin makuha lahat ng kung ano-ano. Pero, yeah, we are in our channel at natagalan ako because I was trying to set up something na hindi ko ma-set up kasi merong problem when it comes to our streaming app. Pero yan, natuloy naman. Late nga lang. Pinagpasensyahan naman, di ba? Anemic, maybe you are avoiding red meat because the most nutritious kind of iron ay hindi sa iron supplement. Nasa red meat. It's the myoglobin. So the globin, the red part in the muscles sa red meat, it can be converted into the hemoglobin. So the globin, the red part that is making our blood red, the red blood cells, that is kapag mababa, is already known as anemia. Upo, vegetable, okay lang. Paborito ko actually yan. Kasi alam mo, parang wala siyang lasa. Para siyang hindi vegetable. Tagal ko na rin hindi nakakain ng upo. But in general, try to eat in moderation and with different variants, especially when it comes to your protein source. Wag lang puro itlog parate, wag lang puro chicken parate. Try to eat beef, try to eat pork, try to eat fish and seafoods, and pwede rin kayong kumain ng shellfishes and even liver. So, yung nagdala si Doc ng bangus, di ba? Meron din siyang ginawang adobong bangus na bituka at liver. So, sabi ng lahat ng kumain masarap daw. And it's also nutritious. Kaya nga lang, hindi ko pa. Nagle-learn pa lang ako to eat liver ng chicken or kakaunting beef liver. Pero yung fish liver, hindi ko pa kaya. So, we will get there. Importante, alam natin, kung gusto nyo mag-soft drinks pa din, kung gusto nyo pang mag-rice pa din, by all means, enjoy yourselves. But don't ever blame anyone kung ano yung mangyari sa inyo eventually. You take charge of your body. You take charge of your own health. And I just pray na sana wag natin hintayin na dumating yung panahon na magsisisi na tayo, that we are already in a grave kind of situation. We are already in pain. We are already in a very difficult situation na wala talaga tayong choice but to eliminate everything. Halos wala na tayo. But when we have a choice, it's actually very empowering at hindi mo alam kung gaano kaganda ito when it comes to the effect on your mindset, on your overall wellness. And once you were able to let go of those foods, baka hindi mo alam. It will have a ripple effect not just on others but in yourself. Like one good habit that you will do will also influence your other habits, like when it comes to your work, when it comes to your family relationships, when it comes to your loved ones, when it comes to you taking care of you. So yun yung pinaka-importante. So I hope you go into a commitment of taking care of yourself, first taking care of your health, and it might include eating pork, chicken liver, gizzards, intestines, sabi ni Julie. But of course, wag parating lahat-lahat at sobra-sobra. Okay? So thank you so much everyone. I'll see you again in our next video. Hopefully we are in a better and happier place. Maraming salamat. Remember to stay low carb so that we all stay safe. Bye!